Susan Smith. She's a liberal strategist with Blue Sky Strategies. Susan, thanks for your time. Why now, do you think? Does this have to be done before September?
It makes a lot of sense to do it now, Morella. The Prime Minister gives time for a new cabinet to learn their files. It's going to be a big shuffle, as we're hearing reported. Some new faces, some old faces moved around, some new departments merged together. And I think a bit of a reset in terms of the focus on economy and security and housing as key issues for Canadians. So this is an excellent time for the Prime Minister to make a shuffle. It's good. It gives a chance for new people to come to cabinet and for others who may not be running again to step aside and allow for the new people to be put in the window, because the reality is we're looking at an election probably in the next year or so. So the Prime Minister wants to make sure that his bench team is ready and he can demonstrate to the country that his bench team is ready.
Okay, you touched on this, but if you can get a little bit deeper into it, where do you want your best people? What are the portfolios that are going to be big ahead of the next federal election? Who do you want in charge of them?
Right. Well, I think the economy is going to drive the conversation predominantly in the next election. You've got the opposition leaders trying to say that the country is broken, and the Prime Minister is going to try and demonstrate quite the opposite. So once again, if it's true that Minister Anand is going to go to Treasury Board, I'm going to disagree kindly with Kevin. Treasury Board is by no means a demotion for anybody. It's a very powerful economic ministry. It's just not well known about outside governments. So you're going to have Chrystia Freeland in finance. You know, we all hear she's staying put. Melanie Joly in foreign affairs. If Anita Anand goes over to Treasury Board, those are the purse strings, certainly finance and Treasury Board of the government. So you've got powerful people there. On the housing file, be interesting to see who's put into that. It will be an excellent communicator. If Bill Blair goes to defense, he's an excellent communicator as well. But it's pocketbook issues that will drive things for Canadians. Is the economy going well? How is the housing portfolio file going? How is reconciliation going? So you will hear and see very strong people in those files who can communicate to Canadians, who can share the government's vision with Canadians, and can also demonstrate to them at the same time that things are getting done.
What about health? Do you think Jean-Yves Duclos will stay? And what will Canadians be watching for under the health banner?
Yeah, that's interesting. I heard there's so many rumors flying around Ottawa right now. It's for us political nerds. It's, we're having a field day. I heard with interest perhaps that Mr. Duclos might be leaving health or moved on to another portfolio. He's a trained economist. He's an excellent communicator. He's a steady hand at the wheel. And he is someone who's not, he doesn't antagonize people. When he stands up in the House of Commons and when he speaks to media, he's very measured and reasonable, and it's really hard to dislike him or take issue with him. So I could see him being moved to a different portfolio, perhaps, to get things done. And as we said, the Prime Minister will demonstrate the depth and strength of his bench, bring some new faces in, and so we may see a new minister at health.
We heard from Stephen Guilbeault. As far as he knows, he's staying. Do you think he'll stay on for environment?
I do. He was about as confident as you could be in that. And we're pretty sure he got on the plane to go to whatever international meeting he had to go to. So I think he will be staying put. What I'm also going to be looking for is in the recombination of some departments. I'm told that the Prime Minister, after the shuffle tomorrow, he will come and speak to the media. Then you'll hear the economic minister speak to the media. Then you're going to hear the security ministers speak to the media, then the new ministers speak to the media. And I've never heard of a grouping of security ministers before. So that's going to be a very interesting framing, giving present events, including wars in Ukraine, foreign interference, and other things like that. So that's a very interesting setup or grouping that the Prime Minister is going to be doing with the message being sent. We also know that the cabinet's going to get to work right away. So once they've spoken to you, the media, and to us as Canadians tomorrow, we're told that they're going to go straight into a cabinet meeting, and it's going to be very much sleeves up. Let's get these portfolios under our belts and ahead of the cabinet planning retreat in August, and then back to the House of Commons and to Canadians in September.
Are there ministers now who you think will have their profile raised? We talked a lot about the ones who already are high visibility, high profile ministers. Some of them will stay. But are there ministers now who are more junior ministers you think will get pushed into bigger portfolios?
Yeah, in particular, Randy Boissonnault. Randy's been the Associate Minister of Finance and the Tourism Minister. He is trilingual, English, French, and Spanish. I've heard him in all three. He's nimble on his feet and he's an excellent communicator. I don't know what portfolio he's going to get, but I expect him to have a very high profile one, perhaps Canadian heritage or something like that. He's very effective at getting things done. I see him in a much more high profile position. Be interesting if someone like George Chahal from Calgary, the lone Liberal MP in Calgary, makes cabinet. He's a very good communicator as well, an Albertan. Maybe Pascale Saint-Onge, who did very well in terms of the Hockey Canada issue. If she ends up somewhere like Canadian Heritage or in another portfolio, you'll be hearing a lot more from her. So that's what cabinet shuffles are about. They're about many things, but it also is about putting effective people, effective decision makers, but effective communicators in the right spots, especially as a government is going into an election.
Very quickly about missteps. Were there clear missteps you see or would call out that led to some of these higher profile ministers about to be pushed back?
Yeah, I think Kevin did nail that definitely with Minister Mendicino in particular. There were just too many missteps for him to stay. I think he's in the penalty box for now. The one thing that this prime minister has demonstrated is if you're out of the cabinet, it doesn't mean you're out forever. You get a chance to rebuild. Minister Lametti, it could be tied to what Kevin was speculating about with regards to that. One comment on Minister Fortier, though, the Treasury Board minister, I was quite shocked that she was not coming back into cabinet in this one. This one, I think, is a pure geography issue. Minister Fortier is a representative of Ottawa-Vanier, which for the Liberals is a very safe riding in the country. So the Prime Minister may be choosing to bring in another Ottawa face who's maybe in a slightly more precarious riding as a voice and more high profile in the Ottawa region. So there's lots of things at play when you make cabinet. It's both a fun job and a very difficult job because you have to count the regions, you have to count the skill set, there's always gender parity now. What groups or minority groups are people representing, et cetera. So those are all things at play. And can we win the riding again is really part of the calculus too. And
we forget that there's so much to balance. It's not just like, I think this person would be good on this file. They can't be on that file depending on where they are from in the country and who they represent. So we know the next election for the Conservatives will be about Justin Trudeau. We've heard Pierre Poilievre sort of try to link him to every single thing that happens in the country. If he is going to run again, and he says he is, doesn't matter who's sitting around him if they try to single out Justin Trudeau.
Yes, it does, because Pierre Poilievre and the opposition can talk all they like, but the party will run a campaign showing all of the talent. François-Philippe Champagne, Chrystia Freeland, Anita Anand, George Chahal. I mean, you pick Pascale Saint-Onge. There is so much talent in this bench. There are so many faces, people with diverse backgrounds. And like I said before, Poilievre wants to show that the country is broken. We have ministers like Karina Gould and Jean Duclos that help negotiate the childcare, $10 a day childcare payments for people. There's a new dental care program. That's not broken. So the Prime Minister will put those people in the window, in addition to himself, to help tell the story to Canadians. Toe-to-toe, though, it will be definitely a Trudeau-Poilievre bun fight, I think, at its mildest. And, you know, we're seeing Mr. Poilievre has no traction at all with women, very little traction with women. He's fixing his hair, changing his glasses, and putting on T-shirts these days. I'm not sure that's going to sell him to Canadians or to Canadian women in particular. So there's a long road between now and a campaign. Prime Minister will put some fresh faces and some fresh ideas, and Poilievre will have to put some of the same thing in the window, and for Canadians to make up their minds when the time comes.
Yep, we'll all be looking in the window. Susan Smith, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time on this.
Thanks for having me.